Let's go, man. We were just sitting here talking about this game just a little bit and how Jay Hill's defense stole the show and the offense did not look great. What's the vibe going into week 2 been up there at the Y?
Well, speaking of Jay Hill and the BYU defense, I spoke with BYU's starting safety, Ethan Slade, early this week, and he said all week long in our defensive rooms, the phrase has been, prove that was not a fluke, meaning the shutout against Sam Houston. So we jokingly said, okay, so much for low expectations because you just pitched a shutout. But BYU feels like against Southern Utah that they can have a similar result as what they were able to do defensively against Sam Houston. So that's the mission this week, is to prove that what happened against Sam Houston, allowing 0 points, was not a fluke. And I know that the FBS Power 5 versus FCS scenario factors into that a little bit, but what you guys are just talking about, that Arizona State game with Southern Utah, I mean, the Thunderbirds put up 21 points and just about snuck out of MP with one of the more notable wins in program history. So BYU is very aware of what Utah is capable of. And to throw another name out there, I spoke with Eddie Heckard, who's BYU's starting cornerback on the field side, and asked him, how you come from Weber State. You have been on multiple teams that have beaten higher division opponents. What's the bit of advice you're giving to your teammates now that you're at BYU and you're in a Power 5 program? And he said, straight up, respect the game. No matter who you're playing against, nameless, faceless opponent, you respect the game or it will come back and bite you in the butt. They will get the better of you. So those are the two challenges for the BYU defense this week, is one, to prove it's not a fluke, and two, respect the game. Now, Devin, the offense, on the other hand, that's where all of the question marks lie. I know that BYU coaches are not people that want to make excuses, but you have to wonder, how much did missing BYU's top 2 receivers last week hurt the fluidity and the chemistry of the offense with Cody Epps and Keanu Hill out? And then maybe just some nerves from Keaton Slovis. And frankly, BYU's offensive line did not play well in the first game. Aaron Roderick, the offensive coordinator, said it was just kind of like they were going haywire. We had guys, missing blocks. We had receivers running the wrong routes. And all of that compounds to make life hard on Keaton Slovis, who wants to make a good impression in his first start. And then you throw in kind of the weird element that BYU was going through a little bit of tragedy with Mata Taase, one of the H-backs, losing his father earlier today. So I don't want to be an apologist, and neither do the coaches, but you have to wonder, when BYU gets their top 2 receivers back, it's not game number 1, and you're not going through a little bit of a team tragedy with one of your teammates losing their father that day, how will that impact the Cougars' mentality? And will we see more clean play on today, which makes this matchup with Southern Utah super intriguing. So how's that for a short answer?
I love it. That's why we got Spencer Linton joining us here, because he knows all things BYU. Talk to me a little bit about the leash for Slovis. I mean, does he get 4-5 games to figure it out? I mean, I know it's not that short of a leash, but there's some good quarterbacks sitting there right behind him. Cade Finnegan, the Boise State transfer, Jake Retzlaff, the Riverside City College transfer, who probably is the number 2 right now, had a great fall camp. I mean, what is that leash like in your estimation for Keaton Slovis?
I think it's really long, Devin, and I think it should be. I think he's done everything he was supposed to do from the time he entered the conversation early in the spring, and then when he became official and led BYU through spring football. Like he is the guy. So frankly, it's going to take, heaven forbid, an injury or some type of scenario where Keaton can't play physically. Like that's what it would take, in my opinion, because he's a captain as a newcomer, and that in and of itself says some things. But he has done enough to earn the job, and it's not close. Not taking nothing away from Jake Retzlaff. I think Jake is a good athlete. He's a playmaker. He's a guy that, you call a gamer, because sometimes in practice he does some unorthodox things, but when he gets on the field, he just makes plays. Now, this is Keaton Slovis' show, and they're going to be very patient with him and the offense. And BYU, I can tell you this much, they're appreciative of the first 2 games to have the opportunity to figure some things out before you have to face 10 Power 5s, beginning with a road contest against a really, really strong Arkansas team and a Razorback squad that can put up some points like they did last year in Provo. So it's Keaton's show. I don't think there's anything that he could do outside of having some sort of physical impairment or an injury that would take him out of the starter role. So, yeah, I think it's a very long leash. He would have to lose all of his long-trained quarterback skills and just, I just don't see it happening. Like he's going to be the guy all season long, barring an injury.
Hey, Spencer. It's also Spencer. I wanted to ask you a question about the running backs. L.J. Martin, the freshman, had a really impressive game with 16 carries for 91 yards. What are your thoughts on him? And will he be the number one running back, or will it be more of a running back by committee for the Cougars?
I still think that Aiden Robbins is the guy. In fact, I don't be surprised to see Aiden run out and be the first-team guy. It just, for whatever reason, the offensive line couldn't get a push like they thought they would be able to against Sam Houston. And Aiden Robbins takes the brunt of, what people perceive as an unsuccessful run game, which is frustrating because I believe that Aiden Robbins is a lot like Chris Brooks. He's a downhill runner, and sometimes, the zone read that BYU runs on offense for the running game, if you can't get the right push and the offensive line is not playing well and they're not making the correct blocks, it is a nightmare for a running back to try and find a gap and go. So I expect Aiden Robbins to still be the guy. And, as good as LJ was, and he was, Aaron Roderick said early in camp, right now as a true freshman, he's one of the best football players we have on this team. LJ is a great, great player. So I wasn't surprised to see him do what he did in the least. But you have to consider, it's late in the game. Maybe Sam Houston's front is tiring a little bit. Maybe the offensive line for BYU got the wake-up call and got yelled at enough that they finally started to hone in, and they weren't playing haywire. I think some of those things combined, along with L.J. Martin's skill, to allow him to break open. Maybe Aiden Robbins, loosened the pickle jar, if you will. He loosened the lid up, and then L.J. was able to kind of just easily pull it off because of whatever circumstances. So love L.J.'s game. I still think that Aiden Robbins should be the starter and will be the starter, and that he should have an easier time finding some footing against a Southern Utah front that won't be as strong as Sam Houston. The thing that people don't realize about Sam Houston is they had anywhere from 15 to 20 starters from last year's or from the team that won the FCS championship 2 years ago sit out.
Oh, yeah.
They purposely chose to sit out so that they could come back and play in FBS and be at the Division I level in their final year.
Yeah, we had Casey Keeler come on our show last year at the week Utah Tech played them, and Utah Tech still lost a close game. So, yeah, we knew that. That's why when I saw the number go up to 21 points, I was like, people don't realize Sam Houston State's got a lot of fresh, hungry guys that have been sitting around waiting for an opportunity to play again, and they're good players.
Absolutely. Yeah, so a great point you bring up. Like, they're fresh legs, and they're anxious to prove that they can hang. So I don't know what Sam Houston's going to be this year. Maybe they're picked to finish last in Conference USA. I don't think they're the worst team in Conference USA.
I agree with you.
I think that the standings will prove that to be the case when we get to the end of the season. I hope that they get to a bowl game. They find a way to manufacture 6 wins. But the point is, maybe we overlooked that a little bit. And BYU fans, they have high expectations. That's probably a gross understatement. The Cougars, even with Sam Houston's resurgence and those guys, those hungry guys, BYU's better than 14 points on offense. We will see that against Southern Utah this week. I expect BYU's offense to look much better, to be more aggressive, to have a more aggressive mindset, play calling, and certainly for the offensive line, who have been called out again and again this week for their less than stellar play, that they'll show up, and BYU should have more of a downhill running attack compared to just this kind of almost confused zone read look. I think that they will cater to a more downhill attack this week, and that suits Aiden Robbins a little bit better. And we'll see more LJ Martin as well. But to circle back to your initial question about the running backs, love LJ. Aiden still needs to be the guy. You get him the right mindset with the right offensive line and the right scheme, and you're going to see him do some nice things.
Spencer Linton, BYU TV. We got about 60 seconds, Spencer. Real quick, give me a couple quick thoughts on SUU, Coach Fitzgerald changing the culture, taking over. This team made big strides last year in his inaugural season as the new head coach, and they're looking to take another huge stride forward. But this is obviously a brutal schedule, playing Pac-12 and Big 12 teams in week 1 and 2 for the T-Birds.
Yeah, first of all, I love Coach Fitzgerald. I love his mentality. I loved what he said after the loss to Arizona State last week, which was, hey, you know, when people were alluding to, can you take some type of moral victory here? And he's like, look, we show up to win games. And I love that.
Yeah.
He's mad that they lost. Like they had a legitimate chance to go in there and stun Arizona State and take home one of these signature wins in SUU football history. They come up short, but I liked that answer. And some people are like, come on, Coach, take your moral victory. No. I love his mentality. And that's another thing that feeds into why BYU is not going to take SUU lightly. They know what happened against Arizona State. They're well aware. Even with it being a weird weather night in Arizona, it doesn't matter. BYU is well aware of what Coach Fitzgerald brings to the table. Don't be surprised to see them, like, straight up battle for, you know, top 3, top 4 spot in the Big Sky. They may sneak up on a few teams and surprise some people. So I'm on board. I think the Thunderbirds are legit, and it just goes to show, again, how critical good coaching is. And I think the Thunderbirds are lucky to have him. So look forward to what's going to happen in Cedar City, and I expect them to put up, you know, a good fight. They're not going to back down from BYU. I think, unfortunately for SUU, they're catching a BYU team that is ultra motivated to come out and prove that things have been rectified on offense and that last week's defensive shutout was not a fluke. So circumstantially, not a great situation for SUU to walk into in Provo because the natives are restless and the team's angry. But that's taking nothing away from Coach Fitzgerald and what he should be able to do in the Big Sky. I'm on board for what's going on in Cedar City.
Yeah, and Spence, just so people don't get confused, Big Sky, they're gone. They left the Big Sky last year. They're in the WAC. And now,
correct, the WAC. My apologies.
Yeah.
Yes, the WAC.
And now, which is merged with the United and become, you know, Andrew Luck's now the commissioner of the United Athletic Conference. So they're, you know, they're playing Austin Peay, they're playing North Alabama, they're playing, you know, Eastern Kentucky. So you know, and a lot of people in Cedar City didn't understand the head-scratching move to Big Sky. They remember how hard it was for the T-Birds to get in the Big Sky. So I think time will tell if that was a great move or not. At least the WAC had enough of a notion to merge with another conference instead of, you know, get passed by like the Pac-12. That's a whole nother topic for another show. Hey, before I let you go, we got to go to a break. But real quickly, BYU fall sports. I wasn't at the football game. My daughter had a soccer tournament. I was at the UVU soccer game against BYU last Saturday night. They shut the gate off. They had turning people away. I couldn't believe how many people went to a UVU BYU soccer team game, and there was standing room only. I mean, we were getting pushed back into the corner behind the goal, Spence, and now they're the number 1 team in the country. How about that Cougar soccer team, buddy?
It's special. They're making history. First team in program history to be ranked number 1. Like the gravity of that, I don't know if people comprehend. It is so difficult to do that at a place like BYU, where there are some limitations, but that's a credit to Jen Rockwood and the program that she has built, and they've gone next level. I mean, in the last 4 years, they've gone to 2 Elite Eights. They've gone to a national championship match. They were in the Sweet 16 last year. They had one senior on last year's team that went to the Sweet 16. They bring everybody back, and not surprisingly, they are off to a very fast start. They're picked to win the Big 12 in year 1 of BYU being in the Big 12. It's a niche sport, and it is growing in popularity, and it's big time in Utah County. So I'm glad you got to experience that. I mean, a 6-1 win was a resounding victory for BYU against UVU. Keep in mind, it was UVU that beat BYU 4-2 last year. So I'm gathering BYU stewed on that for a while in the off season and wanted to send a message back to UVU. But yeah, they're a special team, and look forward to what they can do. I think they got a real shot to not just get to number 1 now, but stay there for a while and be a number 1 seed when the all-important NCAA tournament begins.
I love it. Good stuff from Spencer Linton, at Spencer_Linton on X, on the Xverse. Play-by-play, sideline reporter, BYU TV, host of BYU Sports Nation, does some stuff for KSL as well. Spence, wish we had more time. We got to run to a break, but we'll catch up with you again soon. We'll be talking more BYU football, I'm sure, throughout the season.
No, I appreciate you guys and having me on and for your patience to get me on today. You guys are awesome.
All right, Spencer, Linton, everybody. We got to take a break. When we come back, Lee Sterling, ParamountSports.com will join us. We'll get some picks for you. Stay with us on The Drive.